Hello, my name is Scott Pfeiffer, and I am a candidate for the principal vacancy at Clare High School, and this is my presentation in pursuit of that vacancy. Thank you for viewing. My educational philosophy states that with the right leadership, vision, and support, students and staff can transform a school from a mere building into a community of learners. Students, of course, learn with the assistance and guidance of teachers, but just as importantly, teachers collaborate to learn from one another in an effort to share best practices and continually enhance learning and outcomes for students. In my experience, highly functioning teams have one critical element in common, and that is a common vision and goals that the team is trying to achieve and work toward. If a team does not have a universal understanding of its goals and its vision, then the efforts of the team will lack focus, they will lack direction, and the team will find it very difficult to accomplish much of anything. Members of highly functioning teams can count on each other for support, encouragement, and accountability. If a team member is struggling to perform as needed, other members of the team will support that person and provide any encouragement they can. But from time to time, team leadership does need to examine the makeup of the team and determine if reassignment from the team is necessary if the team is going to continue its work in pursuit of its goals and vision. If a team is allowed to persist long enough without a common vision, without common goals, and without accountability for team members, the team will eventually become dysfunctional, and dysfunctional teams lead to frustration, reduced outcomes, and a lack of collaboration in the future. And in schools in the 21st century and going forward, lack of collaboration is simply not an option. An example of a highly effective, high-functioning team that I have served on at my most recent school was our multi-tiered systems of support building leadership team. That group functioned very well. We agreed on the vision and goals. We also collaborated to devise a list of norms that we agreed on. For example, at a meeting, all cell phones go into the middle of the table and we ignore incoming texts, phone calls, and emails so that the team can work on its work and not be distracted. The group meets monthly to share celebrations, review procedures and programs based on data analysis, and also examine data to proactively approach upcoming problems and opportunities to try to solve small problems before they can become large ones. In terms of Clare High School's data analysis, I examined spring 2016 SAT and MSTEP data from mischooldata.org. And here you see charts, and you'll note areas in red indicate gaps in student achievement. For example, for the overall SAT score, 27% of males were at or above the benchmark college-ready score compared to 38% of females. So there is a gap there. And also you see only 22% of economically disadvantaged students were at or above benchmark. So there is a gap there as well. In examining the rest of the data, you see the same pattern go throughout, in that females are outperforming males and non-economically disadvantaged students are outperforming economically disadvantaged students. Certainly that is not unique to Clare High School. Most school districts see the same gaps between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students, but that is an area where I would definitely want to spend some time with staff. And in looking at the MSTEP here, you see for science, the students at Clare High School outperformed the state for science and performed right in line with the state for social studies. And the gaps here between males and females are somewhat less, but the gaps between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students are persisting here as well. And the experience that I would bring to attempting to work through that problem is that I have 5 years of principal experience and 7 years of teaching experience in a school with what most educators would describe as very challenging demographics. Roughly 85% of the school's students qualified for free or reduced lunch. It was a very diverse school with a growing number of English language learner students. So I'm familiar with the challenges that poverty, in particular generational poverty, can pose to student learning. I would work with staff to analyze curriculum and assessments to make sure that both are adequately preparing students for high-stakes tests such as the SAT. And I would also work with and coach staff to modify instructional practices so that more students, particularly those coming from poverty, would be able to access the core curriculum. Just briefly, I would seek to determine Claire's abilities with regard to explicit vocabulary instruction and the use of formative assessments in light of emphasized learning targets to determine how best to plan efforts going forward. In 21st century schools, simply put, technology's importance cannot be overstated. Here you see my son working on IXL during his spring break. I have seen teachers use these two tools, Kahoot and Quizlet, for not only formative assessment, but also review of foundational skills. They are phenomenal tools that give teachers another way to reach students. Google Apps for Education can be used for data analysis and collaboration between and amongst school administrators and teaching staff. And also with Google Classroom, instruction can be shifted so that teachers can more efficiently reach students. School information systems, of course, are vital to lots of different aspects of the school experience, managing scheduling, graduation progress monitoring, discipline information, reporting to the state and other agencies. And finally, online learning vendors such as Edgenuity and Odysseyware can provide a school with elective options that it may not otherwise be able to offer, as well as credit recovery options for students who have fallen behind pace in terms of a timely graduation. When implementing a change, essential elements of moving a group forward include a sense of shared purpose. A leader must clearly restate the reasons for the change and not only make sure that staff know the reasons for the change, but truly understand and appreciate why the change in practice is necessary. To do this, the leader must approach the situation from a perspective of collaboration and meeting with staff to be able to get their thoughts on the matter. And when the leader does that, buy-in from the staff will increase, and so will the long-term success and sustainability of the change being implemented. The leader must also provide follow-through and accountability. If a leader simply says make a change but does not monitor the implementation, then the leader's efforts at change going forward in the future will be significantly undermined, and the leader must also hold people accountable through support and other means if staff members are not implementing the change as needed. Basically, it boils down to the leader's time. Time is the greatest investment that a leader can make in moving a group forward when a change is implemented, and if a leader can do that, the odds of success are that much greater. When conducting a classroom observation, the three most important facets of instruction that I look for are: first, a passionate and committed, competent instructor. If a teacher is not excited about sharing their content area with students and committed to making sure that students learn it, very little else matters. I also look for engaged, focused students that are actively processing new content, knowledge, and skills. It's not enough to see students jotting down notes. I need to see them collaborating in some way and actively processing the new content so that they can incorporate it into their existing schema and understanding of the content. Finally, I like to see formative assessment tied to the lesson's learning objective. If a teacher is successfully employing formative assessment, they will determine gaps in student knowledge and can best plan for reteaching efforts going forward. In my experience, professional agreements with educators will happen. These are folks that are very hardworking and dedicated to their jobs and to their students, and they will have differences of opinion, particularly in an environment with frequent collaboration. Most of the time, these differences are not out of spite or malice, but simply result from teachers having different ideas about how best to proceed. For example, while designing our high school RTI model, most people agreed with the need to do something, but when we got down to the nuts and bolts issues of making the program work, we struggled. Staff disagreed with times of day that sessions should be implemented. How do we group students and assign them to classrooms? What are the consequences for students who violate expectations? These are all things that we collaborated on, and not everybody walked away from those meetings agreeing, but we implemented the program and have sustained it going forward. We tweaked the approach as circumstances have warranted, and in those follow-up meetings, all staff had the opportunity to express their frustrations and have input into the change process. Those who disagree with the consensus or the superior's decision must have needed support. If their disagreement stems from a lack of understanding, then the leader and other stakeholders must support that person to provide them with the knowledge and skills that they need. And I have found it tremendously valuable to allow staff to express their concerns and frustrations to me. I would rather have them bring their concerns and frustrations to me than share them at lunch and have a corrosive effect on staff morale. In terms of putting students first, I would again cite the high school RTI model that I have previously discussed. We got to a point in the initial stages when a few staff members wanted to simply wash their hands of the entire thing and get rid of the program altogether. In meeting with those staff members and discussing their concerns, we simply looked at the data and said, our students are not performing to a level where we can just get rid of this initiative. It needs to happen. And that was an incident where putting students first may have rubbed some staff the wrong way, but it was in the best interest of students, and so we proceeded. In closing, I would just like to say thank you for your time and consideration of my presentation and other application materials. I wish you the best as you go through applicants and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.